we're ready.
Yeah, we really appreciate that for your team and the IML team who are meeting it this afternoon, that it's a bit of a scramble. So this is the first time for us too, actually. So anyways, I guess with that mutual understanding that we're trying to iron out the kinks, I'm happy to get moving forward. So this consult questionnaire that Mate filled out, I really appreciate that fast turnaround. I'm not even sure that our team has fully been able to read the responses, but we'll use it kind of as both a notes file to populate in advance of our call, one to type meeting notes into during our call, and then also it's something that will become a resource for us afterwards. So even immediately after our call, if people, want to paste in links to additional information that might be useful, we can use it in that way. And then, of course, our team will continue to look at it, and perhaps your team too, to think about, to remember what we've discussed and how to help you all best. So it's
a quick interruption. Are we recording, Anthony?
Thank you, Dave, for reminding me. I actually remembered about 1 minute and 29 seconds ago, so we caught the very beginning of my introduction, but our chitter chat beforehand didn't get captured, so I guess that worked out all right. So it doesn't look like we have anybody else from outside of this attending, but in live, but we will post a recording of this so that other people can see it. So the intent of this is for us to get to know your team better and what your needs are, for us also to provide you opportunity to ask us questions about what we've done, and then in the end really work toward how we can help you better. As I think you all know, we have been working really hard on developing products. There were a number of delays on us getting funding to do this work. It didn't come about until just a little more than 2 years ago that we got full funding, and then at that point, the ecosystem of capabilities that we could employ had changed, and so we took advantage of some opportunities to design something that we think will have much more future benefits to the CZOs, but that added some additional time. So most of our software development is complete. There are a few things that are pending, and really in this last phase of funding until March, we want to focus on helping your team out to help you use the tools that we developed with a lot of initial feedback back in 2012 and 2013. We got quite a bit of feedback from all of the CZO data managers. So that's the purpose of this, is to really have this conversation where everybody is at the table. So I don't know if we want to do introductions. I think maybe why don't we have everybody starting in order here, go around and just do a very brief introduction. Just tell us your name and your role and interest in CZO data management. And we'll first start with the Catalina team and then do our team really quickly.
Okay. You got Paul Schroeder up there, but he's not actually a member of our team. He's with the Calhoun CZO, I believe.
Okay. Got it. All right.
Thanks for like Charles, if you say it fast, show me the answer. But anyway,
yeah.
So I'm John Clark. I'm the PI, the Catalina CZO, Catalina Jemez CZO, and my particular area of interest relates to environmental biogeochemistry, and so chemical data in particular, both solid phase and aqueous phase types of chemical data in both spatial and temporal. types of series.
All right. Thanks.
I'm interested in data management or CZO.
Tom.
Craig Rasmussen, CZO PI and CZO, and my interests are in soils data, in particular the geochemistry or mineralogy or carbon size, any kind of physical chemical characterization of soils data.
Yeah, Tom Meissner, Catalina CZO. My interest is in sort of aqueous geochem data, both from from rain to soil water to groundwater to stream waters.
Super.
Sort of the custody of that, getting it from sample all the way into the database.
Mm-hmm.
Jen McIntosh will be joining us a little bit later. She's got to bring her kid to school, I think. But her area is also aqueous geochemistry and particularly the surface water time series data sets.
Okay. All right, our team. Why don't I start first? So Anthony Offenkamp, I'm an organic geochemist, aquatic organic geochemist, but have been interested in integrating data sets and therefore was asked by NSF to lead the CZO data project when Mark Williams stepped down in 2012. So I'm coordinating the various efforts, but my own development role, I guess my biggest kind of contributions, I think, were to the ODM2 data model, to the ODM2 vocabularies, and then finally to the YODA specification, and that's where I've probably put in the only real coding work. Ilya?
Ilya Zaslavsky from San Diego Supercomputer Center. I've been a part of CZO data project from the early beginning when it was not yet called CZO data, starting with Mark Williams, and partly responsible for the format of CZO display files and the mechanism for submitting time series data to CZO Central. I'm essentially working on data integration systems, distributed data, but in the past I used to be a geographer, so I have some appreciation of what everybody did here.
All right, David Lubinsky.
David Lubinsky, I'm at University of Colorado at Boulder, the Institute of Arctic and Alpine Research. I'm the guy who built criticalzone.org, along with a lot of other people who helped sort of design and get that going. And I also, I guess it was 6 months or something after we built the site, we sort of retrofitted it to handle data, which really wasn't the original intention, but it seemed to be a good opportunity to make data sets, that, more specifically the metadata for your data, widely accessible. So I've been doing web work for science groups and science projects for about a little over a dozen years now, and a former science guy.
David, are you still in charge, basically, of updating, et cetera, criticalzone.org, or has that been turned over to somebody else now?
So the content has always, updating has always been the responsibility of the individual CZOs. But I do now have a sort of subcontract with the national office, and actually our funding was delayed for this year, but so I'll be getting going on that again here this fall. So we actually do have funding to improve the kind of core criticalzone.org experience outside of data. So I am involved. You can kind of consider me sort of the webmaster for everything criticalzone.org, and definitely help out all the sort of subdomains that we have as well. Although some of them are almost entirely driven by other people. So search.criticalzone.org, for example, our data search portal and our visualization portal, biz.criticalzone.org, are run by other folks.
Okay, thanks.
Kirsten?
Yeah, hi, I'm Kirsten Lehnert. I'm a petrologist and geochemist originally, but now I'm directing an NSF data facility called Interdisciplinary Earth Data Alliance. And one of the systems that we operate is the EarthChem with a data repository for geochemical data, the EarthChem library. And that is the part where we're working with the critical zone observatories and providing repository service for geochemical data. We've also been part of the development of the ODM2 data model, and we're bringing in the sample management in that AIDA also operates the system for a sample registration that allows programs and researchers to assign unique sample identifiers to their specimens and cores and water samples and so on, and basically make metadata of these samples available. Yeah, I think that's it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Megan?
Hi, everybody. My name is Megan Carter. I'm a data manager here at the Interdisciplinary Earth Data Alliance. So Kirsten basically described what I work on. I can help you get DOIs for your data sets, help you register your samples with IGSMs. I am trained as a geochemist. I did my graduate work with Sue Brantley, so I am familiar with CZOs.
Sarah?
Hi, I'm Sarah Damiano. I work at the CZOData Research Center under Anthony. I've kind of done a lot of field sample work, and now I do a lot of data stuff, and I've helped design some of the initial templates for the YAML YODA files in Excel.
Sarah was also quite critical in ODM2 development, or she was a active participating member there because of her experiences managing data at the Stroud Center for quite a while. Emilio?
Hi, I'm Emilio Mayorga. I'm at the University of Washington, the Applied Physics Lab. I'm responsible for the data visualization portal for time series and IGSN sites now. I'm originally an aquatic biogeochemist, and I was also part of the ODM2 team.
Jeff.
Hi, Jeff Horsborough from Utah State University, Civil and Environmental Engineering. I'm working on the CZOData project, led the group in the development of the observations data model version 2, but also worked a lot on the quasi-hydrologic information system and the earlier versions of ODM, the whole quasi-hydrologic information system. Also done a lot of work with Anthony and all of the others on control vocabularies and the rest of the CZOData project.
All right, Tom.
Tom Whiteneck. I work at the San Diego Supercomputer Center with Ilya and Dave. I've been working on this project since, well, we developed the original display file to HydroServer pipeline, and I've been working mostly on the search interface now as well.
David Valentine.
Dave Valentine. I work with San Diego Supercomputer Center. I'm a geologist by trade, programmer by pay. I design web services and information models, so I'm the geek responsible for the original WaterML1. Right now we're doing information services for this group, so that's it.
All right, Paul Schroeder, I'm going to let you, so Paul is, I guess, joining us from Calhoun CZO as a listener, but here's your opportunity to just introduce who you are. It's good to all get to know each other.
So, Anthony, I'm on speakerphone. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. Okay, simply I'm a geologist at the Department of Geology, University of Georgia. I'm one of the co-PIs on the Calhoun CZO. I guess my perspective is I'm one of the people that sort of generate a lot of the data and don't know a lot about data management, so I guess I'm trying to bring the Calhoun CZO group sort of into the picture and see how the process is done. So that, in part, that's my curiosity here.
Super. That was the point of us opening it up. So thank you all for those introductions. I realize that takes a bit of time. We got a little bit of a late start, and that took 15 minutes instead of 10 like I was imagining. But I think it's really important for us to do these things because at CZO national meetings, I and maybe one or two other people show up and do a presentation, and the CZO investigators kind of think like, you know, they don't have an idea that we have such a big distributed project with expertise and different areas of responsibility within our project. So one of the points of this is to let you understand how the various aspects of our projects have different contact people and expertise. And then likewise, the same thing goes for the CZOs. When we have IMC meetings, CZO PIs don't show up. And a lot of the investigators don't show up, although one or two do. So it's important to know who the interested parties are. I think that's one of the values of these calls. For those of you who want our contact information for our team, you can search under people and basically tag by cyber infrastructure and come up with this list. I included this list basically the summary page from criticalzone.org as a link right here in our notes. The next thing I'm going to point out, we're going to go over this a little bit today or answer questions about it. But as I pointed out in a recent email, one of the things that we've been working on for the last several weeks is massively updating our expectations and options and how we might be able to help with written instructions and other things for all the aspects of our project. So this Submit CZO Data page got expanded out to from one page to a total of 10 with 9 different pages with more details about different aspects of sharing CZO data. When you click on each of these, we have clearly linked the contact people for that particular aspect of our project because this is a distributed project. Okay, so let's move forward here. I assume that this was Matei that wrote this, that this is recently received, so we understand, but nevertheless Matei stepped up and prepared a bit of a presentation describing things. Matei, are you prepared to for me to share screen sharing privileges with you and your computer for you to go through this 20-minute presentation, at most 30 minutes, but the shorter the better, and then we can take notes in this area and then kind of go over this portion of the agenda. Maybe I'll point out that after this portion of us getting to know you, the CZO data team getting to know how you all manage data, really then gets followed by us kind of asking you, have you looked at our recent pages? We understand that we just submitted them. Do you have questions about them? So we want to get feedback from you about to how we can help you with that. And then the next part of the agenda is really us kind of maybe giving some pointers and ideas based on what we've seen and heard. We haven't pre-populated any of this, but we may be filling some of these things out as we're listening to your presentation. And then the very last part of the agenda for our call, which should end in about an hour and a half, will be this future needs, like essentially us getting a little bit of an idea of where to go from here. We have what we've developed. We now want to help you learn what we've developed and use what we developed. We developed it with quite a bit of input from all of you, albeit about 2 years ago, 2 to 3 years ago. But our funding ends in March, and we will be beginning conversations with NSF about where to take this project. And of course, they'll be also deciding whether or not to, depending on how much to give us, or maybe to give the money to someone else. So this input is really important for guiding the future of CZO data. So then there's an appendix at the end of here, which is really just a summary of what's available online at that website. So that's our agenda. Matej, are you ready to share your screen with us?
Yes, I am, but do I have to load my presentation to WebEx, or it will share all my screen?
Yep, so I just gave you the ball. I just passed you the screen sharing ball, so now you have presenter privileges. So this, if you go to the quick start menu for WebEx and hit the share screen button, we should be able to all see your screen, and then you can just walk through your PowerPoint from your own laptop.
Can you see it now? Do you see the presentation?
No.
On WebEx. Okay, yeah, go back to WebEx.
So you have to find the WebEx. Yeah, the WebEx. So when I ended my screen sharing, what you saw just disappeared, right? So you have to toggle through and open up the WebEx app. There we go. Now we see it. Perfect. Yep, we do. And then we're going to hit full screen, each of us, and then we'll be seeing kind of the equivalent of what you saw. So we see it, and go ahead and hit presenter mode, and that should all work out in theory. If you've got two screens going on, it might, so what you want to do, right now we're seeing what you see on your laptop, Matej. If you can turn off presenter mode and have mirroring, that would probably be the best. Unfortunately, WebEx isn't as great. Yeah, you could, no, say duplicate slideshow. Yeah, there you go, perfect. All right, we're good.
Thank you.
Okay.
And CZO Data Team, we can use this as an opportunity as we're listening in to actually write notes in the questionnaire as some of these questions get answered for us. Or write new questions as we listen. All right, go ahead, Matej.
Hi. So I will start with data management infrastructure of our CZO.
Matej, if you could move the microphone as close to you as possible for this portion of our conversation, that would be great.
I did.
All right.
Can you hear me better?
Yes.
Okay. So all data management in our CZO starts with a collection of data and samples. For data collection, we have set up automated data collection, which are collected in real time, and this data can be visualized on the CZO website as well. And then data which are collected manually, then they are processed, quality control, and loaded to database. Real-time data are loaded to database directly, and then additionally quality controlled and published on the website. Data management for samples is when sample is collected, it's sent from terrain to the laboratories where samples are handled, analyzed, data are quality controlled, and published in Google spreadsheets, and from Google spreadsheets are published on the CZO website and loaded to database. Once data are in database, we are publishing them once they are in the website, the data can be accessed via web interface, and database can be queried, and CZO display file version 1 can be generated and downloaded. Or additional tools which I have and using to publish data are basically the same as the web tools, but they are working locally, so I create file locally and publish them on the CZO website. And once data are or display files are generated, the data can be shared via CZO Central, where data are harvested, in my case mostly manually, and on CZO website and data depositories like EarthChem, and Open Topography, and KNB. And this is flow how basically the web tools for data retrieving or tools which are built for generating display files works. So data are extracted from database, check if they are private or public, and then the rest is that they are published on the website, CZO Central, and web interface. For the data storage, I'm using ODM1 database schema implemented in Oracle and newly in MySQL. The ODM1 I'm using for water chemistry and time series data, and geochemistry data, we are still have some data in CZChemDB. But for now we are not adding some new data, and basically we were waiting for the new templates for the display file version 2 or YODA files. For the spatial data sets, we are using mostly ESRI shapefiles, SkyLM, and GeoJSON. For the raster data, mostly GeoTIFF, but it can be IMG or ASCII files. As well as I have some of the data stored in the Geo database, which is implemented on Oracle. And for the hydrology, I'm using ArcHydro or National Hydrology datasets. Basically, this set of standards for creating some hydrology-related datasets. All data which we are collecting are stored in raw data files, so as they come from data logger, either binary or ASCII files. And additionally, once data are quality controls, they are stored in either Excel files or text file, which is comma or tab delimited. And this is I'll just go very quickly through this. So, for all time series and chemistry data, I'm using ODM1 database, but with little expansion. I think you all heard about this. So I'll just go very quickly through it. So I have to add some new tables for data sources and metadata, for catalog, expand the data sample part was little expanded and added some security tables. So what kind of data we are collecting in our CZO? So for now we have installed all these data sets. So for climate, we have 5 met stations in Catalinas and Jemez, 3 flux towers, and 13 separate rain gauges. For soil data, we have installed 12 paddons in Jemez and 4 in Catalinas. And all these 16 paddons have installed volumetric water content and temperature sensors, water potential redox, CO2, O2 sensors, and water samplers at 3 different depths, and some of them are on 4 different depths. In the Catalinas, we have additionally 9 pits, which are equipped with volumetric water content sensors measured in 12 or from 2 to 4 depth, and these data are measuring every 10 minutes. Then we are measuring groundwater levels. So we have installed 15 piezometers in Catalinas, 4 in Jemez. Then we are collecting some solid samples, soil, rocks, and pretty soon we are going to collect some drilling core data. Then we have installed subflow measurements on 17 trees in Catalinas and 16 in Jemez, which were discontinued because of the fire in 2013. Then 10 flumes for stream flows. Then approximately 500 samples a year we are collecting from surface waters. And from the analysis, we have approximately 64 variables. Then we have 3 LiDARs, airborne LiDARs and 1 ground LiDAR so far. 3 airborne LiDARs are already published on Open Topography and our CZO website. Next is geospatial data, which includes locations and boundaries and elevation data and some derived data sets like topographic wetness index, slope aspect, northerness, and so on. Additionally, we have 7 phenocameras. Each of them is collecting data every hour, which is approximately 100 gigabytes a year of data. And there are some additional derived data from the images, which is snow depth and greenness index. And then model data. So far we have only EMT from the model data published on the website. So, and this is how we are basically sharing our data. So far we have collected 59 million values and stored in our database, which is approximately 14 million a year for 2014, and it will be more for 2015. On the website, we have published 41 data sets, which is 28 time series for water chemistry data, 1 geochemistry data set, 8 geospatial and LiDAR data sets. All these data are published in CZO display file or some geospatial format like geotiffs and shape files. And these data are updated 1 to 4 times a year. It depends on data set, or they are updated based on the availability. So it's not sort of like regularly. Sometimes we have to wait in the winter to go to field and collect data. 3 LiDAR data sets we have already published on Open Topography, and more than 17 million values are published through the CZO Central, and this can be accessed through 2 web services, either from CZO Central pages or quasi-Hydro client. Basically, and about the data usage, so last year we have 766 unique users which use these published data sets and downloaded approximately a little more than 6,000 data files from our server where all the data files are sitting. So all data which are published on the CZO website are publicly available and ready to be shared. Additionally, we are sharing data mostly, or if the data are private, so it's mostly on the scientist-to-scientist base, and exchanging ideas and data basically this way. And data which are published and publicly available, they are available for sharing. And for the cross-CZO publications where our data sets were used, so we have so far published 17 research papers from 71 papers, which used data from various cross-CZOs And this 17 papers acknowledge NSF, and there is some more which doesn't acknowledge NSF, which were published before our CZO started. And this is example of the data sets which were used in these publications. Mostly it was LiDAR, water chemistry, flux cover data, met data, snow data, soil geochemistry, soil moisture, and stream flow. And so this is what we are planning to do next. So add some new data sets to the CZO website, like geochemistry, all data from the Mount Bigelow, flux cover, and ZOP, which were instrumented very recently in November and December last year. And some phenogram photos and some derived data from these photos. And additionally, our next step will be transition from ODM1 to ODM2 and publish data in display file version 2 or YODA files, how we call them. And finally, these are some other additional questions which are not listed on that document which Anthony posted. And these questions were created before you send us the questionnaire last time. So
yeah, no worries. It will still be very helpful.
Some of them can be obsolete. Some of them overlapping what is on that questionnaire files which I and John added yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we circulated, the request for questions among our group. So some of these come from various members of the group.
Perfect.
Right. Yeah, so I think we can discuss this question like when you do presentation, or I don't know how you want to do it.
Yeah. How about before we dive into these questions for us, maybe since you just did a great job of summarizing, there's a little bit of feedback coming from your mic, Matej, or noise. That's better, suddenly. All right. It's like electronic noise.
Also, it's probably computer. Yeah.
Yeah, it might be. Okay, so you just presented a whole bunch of information about your data management system and how it's structured and what types of data sets you're processing. And I'm wondering if there's anybody from this, if any of us from the CZO data team have some questions for clarification or kind of additional information regarding the work that you're doing, and have done.
I just wanted to say that I put down questions during the presentation that basically relate directly to the questions that are now on the screen. It was, are there DOIs? Why aren't there any DOIs on the data sets? And have the samples been registered and so on? So we would directly go into the questions that Matej has laid out here. This came immediately to my attention as well.
And some of these questions, I think, were answered by the new web pages which you created very recently. And basically, we added this question before we saw that new pages. So now it's a little more clear how some processes like assigning IGSM and some other things we can.
Yep.
Yeah, I think let's so there's a the next part of the agenda is to basically have these kind of questions come to us, and then we can finally give feedback to our CZO data team can give feedback to the CZO about things to consider based on everything we've heard. Right now, I'm kind of interested in clarifying questions about what was just presented, so that we understand what has been done better, if there are any questions about that.
This is Emilio. Emilia Mayorga. I just wanted to say that that was a fantastic content or presentation. I could not possibly absorb all of it, but I know this is going to be recorded, but it'd be great if the presentation is available also so that we can go over it and maybe do follow-ups given the fantastic amount of detail that is there.
I already added this presentation to that directory where that questionnaire is, which Anthony posted.
Okay, so thank you. Perfect.
You can, I think you have access to that.
Yes.
Directory, so you can.
Oh yeah, you did. That's funny. I asked you the question and I didn't even notice that you beat me to it, Matej. That is fabulous. So it's available right now, Emilio. It was done actually before that we got on the call.
Oh.
So if you scroll up to the notes in the questionnaire under point number 1, describe your data management infrastructure, I actually included a link to the folder, and I did that, but Matej had already beat me to it, and I didn't notice it.
Thank you.
Yep, it's the same folder that this questionnaire is in, so that's actually great. Thank you, Matej. I will second Emilio's compliment in saying that your team has, I guess it's a little premature for feedback. That was going to be later, but your presentation really covers a lot, and I think it's there's a lot of great information there, and your team is really kind of covering a lot of the bases. But there are still ways in which it seems that we can help you from your questions and also from the questions that I think are at the tip of our tongues regarding implementing AIDA services. Are there any more clarifying questions? I know that, Matej, you've presented your implementation of ODM1 in Oracle, and now it looks like it's in MySQL.
Yeah, I have to decommission. I have to switch off one of the servers. So I have to move data to another one. So I still have installed Oracle, but it's easier for me for the future if I go to ODM2 to use MySQL.
Yeah, perfect. So we're aware that you're one of the people who has implemented that in your data pipeline for getting automated the publication, or I should say the archiving of files as CZO display files is great. Any other questions? So if we go through this part of the agenda, so there's maybe if someone, yeah, exactly, put a direct link into that presentation. Is that Sarah who's doing it? Sarah just pasted in the direct link into the notes file. Some of you can see that. We're still looking at Matej's screen, but for those of you who are logged into the questionnaire, that link is there. Next question was what data management tools to use. I think that was answered. Breadth and scope of data, nicely answered. Also pasted into our form. Data availability and update frequency, nicely answered. Data standards. So what's listed is CZO display file, geospatial standards. With CZO display file, we presume that you're using vocabularies from Quasi, things like that. Is that right, Matej?
Yeah.
Or are there any other vocabularies that you use?
Not really. It's,
okay.
It's purely based on Quasi vocabulary.
Mm-hmm. And you showed us quite a bit of data for cross-CZO use. And then the last question here was, who do you interact with? And it sounds like you're clearly interacting with other CZO scientists. I think the intent of this question was also to wonder if you interact with any other cyber infrastructure people. Are you part of any other data sharing network, or does anyone on your team attend any of the very many conferences that are happening about data sharing and cyber infrastructure? Is there any other collaborations other than with us that you've got along those lines?
Not recently, but in the past years, but mostly with Quasi and data.
Okay.
So that's it. And sometimes we interact like between data manager if somebody has a problem and some questions.
Super.
Sort of, it's not on a regular basis that we are meeting.
Okay. Shall we move to the next part of the conversation about what our CZO data team, the guidelines that we have? We know that these are very new. I'm wondering that whether, because they're so new, if it might be helpful to do a quick overview before we go back to your questions.
Yeah, I think that would be great, actually.
Okay. I will take screen sharing back then for that. And then we're going to go back to those questions that you had, Mate. That would be great. Actually, Sarah, could you download the PowerPoint and just copy and paste those questions into the questionnaire? Thanks, Sarah. Okay, so at the Critical Zone Observatory's webpage, there's this prominent data tab. And we have had for a while these main high-level pages of how to access the CZO data, and we've described that our cyber infrastructure is all starts with creating CZO dataset listings, which are essentially web pages on criticalzone.org. that describes the data sets. It uses the infrastructure of the criticalzone.org website to link to authors and information about field areas and disciplinary tags and associates, with which CZOs. There are form places for describing the data set, kind of free-form variables listings, of course, the data set title, how to cite it, acknowledgments for NSF grants. So and the back end of the form, there are quite a bit of opportunities. How many of the CZO PIs have actually seen the back end of the website? Probably very few, right?
Just probably me. I don't know if any of the other PIs have really seen it. We haven't done it in a group meeting.
All right. Yep. I've got this open in another browser, so I'm going to open this up here. So, actually, I'll just paste this. So I'm logged in, and Mate and anybody else, any web person at your CZO, and actually any investigator, we can issue logins. But once you're logged in, a little admin button appears down here. And that admin button allows you to edit the entry, and then you can open it in a new tab. When that happens, actually, where did that go? Did that go way to the end here? You know what? I've got way too many tabs open there, so let me move this down to its own tab.
First definition, first world problem.
Yep, way too many tabs open is not a unique thing, is it?
When we're looking at what you're showing, it's cut off on ours, and I'm trying to figure out, it was fine before, but there's no mode issue. We're seeing just sort of the center. We're cut up on both sides, left and right.
Are you using Mate's laptop?
Yeah, we're using the same laptop.
So he enabled display mirroring on his laptop, which you didn't have before. So when there was no mirroring, his laptop and the projector both display at their native resolutions, which is great. But when he hit mirroring now, they're trying to match the same resolution, and that's the problem. So if he turns mirroring off, it should all come back. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. So all I will say is that the back end of the website for this page, when you edit it, looks like a form, and you just fill things out. It's really easy to fill out. A lot of the stuff you pick from lists, and there's a lot of instruction about how to put the information into this web page form. And a lot of times you just can drag and drop. I can click on geochemistry and it will show up over here. I'm not going to save it, so I'm not going to change the entry, but same thing goes for people and other things. It's very easy to fill out this form. There are other tabs, so there's extra information that's available, like this is the grant number tab and has an explicit link. So it's really straightforward for your data managers to create a dataset web page. They liked the system well enough that the decision was made back in December 2012 that we would use this as the foundation for data sharing. And what we've done is that all the metadata, the information about this grouping of files, gets translated into an international standards organization, or ISO metadata format for a grouping of data files with geospatial information in them. So it's ISO 19115 for those of you who care about that. And that then becomes the foundation, whoops, let me back up here, for, probably easier for me to just go this way. So that becomes the foundation for everything else that we do. So once a data set gets listed here, then it's available in the search portal, and some of that data is also available in the visualization portal, although the connection is not automated, and we're going to talk about that. We had a relatively small budget to prototype the visualization portal compared to some of our other budgets. So the data set listings show up in the search portal, and here there's much more powerful ability to find all the files, and these can then link back. So the files, what is listed for your CZO here shows up in the search portal, and then can get federated and shared very broadly. It's using this international standard metadata format. It's a way to share data. It's a way to do really powerful keyword searches of data. I can combine, clicking on things here with free words, and it all combines using this very powerful Solr search capabilities to find stuff. So that's the foundation of what we of these ways to access data. But what we're building is a number of capabilities that are then built upon that for enhanced data management. And this is where what we've really spent some time documenting in the last, where we've been working on these enhanced capabilities for the present and the future. That most of that work was finished in the winter and the spring, and now we've documented it. So we've done webinars on how to load data sets and why, but now we have, so when we go to the Submit CZO Data page, we have a little bit of description of why, but then we actually describe that the CZOs are expected to share data in certain ways, and this is, now that most of this is available, these are the 7 ways in which CZOs are expected to share data. And it all starts with these data set listings at criticalzone.org. So if we click to that page, you can see, what we try to do is give you the benefits of doing it, and if you do it, what is the outcome of sharing your data. So we try to give a little bit more background for each of these, why this is useful, and you guys have done a great job of doing as much as possible. And then we have instructions on how to do it, so much more detailed instructions than we've ever had before with examples. So we want to share the data. The next thing we want to do is, as much as possible, we want to share the data as YODA files. Back in 2010, the CZO display file concept was was developed to be a way to share data that in a way that was both easy for humans to read and write, and then also easy for machines to parse and generate. So the CZO display file had a lot of issues that were discovered by data managers, and we have, from the very beginning, been intending to replace it with a version 2. That version 2, we've called YODA files because the acronym is YAML Observations Data Archive and Exchange. We like the term YODA, but it actually is meaningful. YAML is a... Yeah. YAML, as we describe, I think, a little bit further down here, is a... where do we have it? YAML stands for YAML Ain't Markup Language. It is a data serialization and interchange format that is an international format. It's a superset of JavaScript object notation, and the short story there is that almost, I think, every modern computer language has libraries that can parse it and do something with it. So it's where we start for syntax for our new version of the display file. But then the second bit is, what do you include in it in the display, in this new version of the display file? And we decided that it made the most sense to really connect these YODA files to ODM2, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. ODM2 is actually...
Are CZOs currently uploading, data as YODA files, or is this something that you're hoping you'll see more of in the future?
This is something that we want you to all get started on very soon. I will say with some chagrin, because the YODA file has been kind of my baby, that of all of this, the YODA files are the one aspect of this that's not quite complete. We have the replacement for the CZO display file working quite well. The CZO display file only worked for sensor time series measurements, really, kind of framed around hydrology because it only worked well with quasi-control vocabularies. YODA files are designed to be fully capable of handling all sorts of data types, from soil geochemistry to things like plant biodiversity transects or any of that. But we need a little bit more work to make it easy for you to use. Right now, we can still handle CZO display files. You guys have already displayed a lot of them, and you haven't really put a brake on doing so. You have an automated way of doing it. We are developing tools to allow you to move to YODA files. And we should probably have so this is coming down the pipe. It's not something that's going away. There's already a lot of investment in ODM2 by a number of data centers. I've talked a lot about ODM2. It was a huge focus of our energies. But we list it near the end here because, frankly, these things that depend on ODM2 don't require you to manage your data in ODM2. It's interesting that Matei wants to move to ODM2. That's great. We're really excited about that, but it's not required. But we ourselves are integrating things that, using ODM2. The new cyber infrastructure at AIDA is based on ODM2. So all of their data integration will work based on ODM2. Quasi HydroShare is implementing services around ODM2. The Quasi Water Data Center is very interested in ODM2. They're just getting their feet off the ground and kind of transferring, like rebuilding their services in the cloud. But they have quite a bit of interest. So ODM2 is here to stay. It's mostly going to operate under the hood. You guys won't even see it unless you want to.
So when you say share data as YODA files, which of those, so you say such as hydrologic time series, soil profile, chemistry, biodiversity, transects, et cetera, which of those can we do presently? Because one of the things that we certainly want to do, we have a lot of soil profile geochemistry data that we want to put up on our site and share. We haven't done it yet, and we're trying to decide between two options, basically, using this approach, which we're hoping to learn a little bit about today. That's definitely one of our priorities. If you could show us how that could be done in some way, or show us how we can learn how that can be done, or point us in the right direction to get us started. Alternatively, you know, we can basically post data as Excel files and make them publicly available too. You know, that's sort of like the extreme other end of things. But we're trying to figure out which one is more appropriate at this point in time.
Yeah. If we go to data sets here, here's something that it's worth pointing out. Any file can be linked to as a data set, right? Any file format at all. Excel, shape files, just plain old CSVs. There's really no requirement.
No, we realize
and
that.
you guys have taken advantage of that. You heard that message. We've said, post data. It's available. It's working. It's been working for 2 years now, this capability. And your team has done a good job of not putting on the brakes and doing it. At any time, you could take this data set right here, and I think I actually downloaded it. No, I guess I closed it. But I can download this file in a CSV, open it up in Excel, and here you go. So your data's there. So this file is great. You're sharing your data. You're fulfilling obligations to NSF. It's searchable in our GeoPortal server, which is called search.criticalzone.org. When the YODA file specification comes out, this will be really straightforward to convert to YODA file if you want that extra level of integration. Right now, not being in any specified format, this is a dead end, meaning it doesn't go anywhere else. Nobody is going to be able to find the data value for barometric pressure on that particular date equals that using some big data system. All they're going to find is that you have a data file that has this information. You have a data file for meteorological data from B2 desert site on 2009. That's all they're going to find, and that it has these variables. So they can find that, but they can't find the individual values. The display file is readable into a quasi-hydroserver 1.1 data system, and those individual values can then be queried using Hydro Desktop, etc. The YODA file is going to reproduce those exact same capabilities. So the point is that there's nothing holding you back from creating this page right now, like you did, and posting the data as an Excel spreadsheet or a CSV. As soon as you could do it as a display file and you'd get a little extra benefit. As soon as the new YODA file comes up, you can just replace this file. So have the same. Everything is here, but now it points to a display, a YODA file, and these get updated daily. We tried hourly, although I guess there's been bugs with that. But you know, you post something here, and in 24 hours it shows up here. You know, I guess what are we looking at? Meteorology. So it shows up here. Did I get that right? Somehow it's not tagged right. So we can talk about, oh, that's because I still have soil in the mix. Take soil out. So that should be in this list here somewhere. There are 15 results, so it's not on one of the other pages. Oh, I can do B2 to find that. So there we go. We've got that file right there. It's all here. And as soon as it gets replaced with a YODA file and all of our functionality is showing up, we'll have a link to a YODA file and we'll have enhanced services based on the YODA file. But if you list it on your listing, you're immediately getting credit for sharing it. It's especially if you list it, the NSF project ID award number. All right.
Anthony?
Yeah.
I have a question. So how CZO Central database, which is ODM1, is going to fit to the new system?
Yeah.
So if you are going to query directly your files, so do we need that CZO Central or how it's going to be?
So CZO Central is a search portal. So the other thing to point out is that these data files don't ever exist at CZO Central.
Yeah, but
so
CZO Central is as well as database, which store data, and these data are accessible to the web services.
Right. So so we can talk a little bit about ODM migration of ODM1 to ODM2, but what is presently happening is that we have we're building. I don't really want to spend too much time going into the ODM2 stuff, but there's a whole family of software that we're building around ODM2. And one set of the software, Jeff can talk about it a bit more. It may be part of the ODM2 repository or maybe the ODM2 Python API, allows us to convert an ODM 1.1 database to an ODM2 database. And Matei, since you're interested in implementing ODM2, you'll want to contact Jeff about doing that. That's already functional. Jeff has already done that, if I'm not mistaken. So we will be in the process of migrating that infrastructure.
Yeah, just to add to what Anthony said, this is Ilya. Currently, we have all the data in ODM1, as you all know, and the issue, well, one part of it is transition to ODM2. We already have some services that work over ODM2, so you will be accessing your data not through WaterML, Water1Flow services, but via ODM2 services. Eventually, we may want to have a permanent storage for this data, so that could go into Quasi, for example, once they adopt ODM2, which hopefully will happen soon. Until then, we certainly will do migration on our side. So it will be managed.
Yeah,
Emilio, to add to what Ilya said now. Ilya mentioned ODM2 web services. Recently, we've had good discussions about also including, as part of the migration to ODM2, including to ease transitions, a Water1Flow WaterML1 service on top of an ODM2 database. So if we move forward with this approach, the transition to an ODM2 to YOTA files and ODM2 databases at San Diego would also include a Water1Flow service that behaves just like any other Water1Flow service, which means that there wouldn't be any disruptions for any client that consumes that data. That includes the visualization portal, but also the current Quasi Water Data Center client tool.
And I would just add, Anthony, that one of the reasons why this transition is so important is because ODM1 and Water1Flow and WaterML version 1.1 really didn't handle sample-based data sets very well at all. So while we can still maintain all of the older functionality with hydrologic time series and time series of other types, what we're really moving toward is having the capability to handle both time series and the other kinds of data that you can actually encode using ODM2 and the YOTA files. So that's kind of an important consideration and one of the reasons why we're putting all this machinery in place.
Yeah, just to add that there are a lot of moving parts here, as you can see. In addition to WaterML1, there's now international standard called WaterML2, which explicitly focuses on time series so far. But there is work on adding water quality components to it. That is not yet standardized. So we have a few standard protocols to work with, WaterML2, ODM2 services, and WaterML1 will be supported continuously as long as there are clients that work with it. So there shouldn't be disruption.
You do say WaterML2 does not yet do water quality, so you mean like water chemistry? Doesn't support water chemistry type data?
Not yet.
Okay.
WaterML2 Part 1 is time series. That's the standard that has been adopted by OGC a couple of years back. And WaterML2 Part 2 is focusing on gauging and rating representation. WaterML Part 3, which is not yet developed, has, we will focus on water quality.
If I can add to that a little bit, Emilio again here. WaterML1, it's not that it can't support any kind of water quality data. WaterML1 is optimized, and so is WaterML2 really, for time series data, and especially sensor time series data. Again, if you have a chemistry sensor like nitrate or on water, I guess, or dissolved oxygen, or even CO2 fluxes, especially if they're coming from sensors, it's certainly supported. Even for sample-based analysis, a number of groups have used it for time series like that are collected from samples and analyzed in the lab, and there are some CZOs that are using it. It's just the real problem is that it doesn't have sufficient metadata or a structure that is appropriate to describe those data and how it was collected in a good way. So it's some challenging. Go ahead, Kirsten.
I was just going to add to that. Currently, I mean, EarthChem provides templates that basically guide you in including those important provenance metadata. I think that is, for the interim, the best solution is to use those type of spreadsheets that basically make sure that the metadata are complete. We can later build translators from those spreadsheets into ODM2-based databases and so on. But, we shouldn't be continuing to gather or make accessible data if they're not completely documented, especially with respect to provenance.
Yeah.
So then the idea is that we would continue to do essentially what we're doing with making our data sheets, Excel spreadsheets, et cetera, publicly available until the transition time that we could, when the other technologies are available for us to make the transfers. But are there templates, are there specific templates, I guess, for our spreadsheets that we should be using that are different than what we're currently using that would make it easier to make that translation when the time comes, or be doing things the way we're doing now, I guess, is the question.
We have a couple beta versions of spreadsheets available for YODA files. We sent them out for testing, and essentially we realized pretty quickly that the hydrological spreadsheet works reasonably well, but the soil profile specimen-based lab measurement spreadsheet completely crashed, and it had to do with Visual Basic scripts, and we were basically trying to do too much within the Excel templates. We were trying to do a bunch of validation stuff to make sure that they passed all the criteria, and it was too much. So what we decided to do, and this was all work that was done in May basically, is that we really need to scrap the Visual Basic end of things and offload the validation to an off-site set of libraries. So right now we're working on these YODA tools libraries that will, validate a YODA file and other things, and this would be available. This is going to take a little while, but we'll basically take the YODA file and do all the things that we need to do with it, and there won't be any macros, or there won't be any heavy-duty Visual Basic things built into Excel. It was just completely crashing Excel. Excel, in theory, could have done it, but in practice didn't.
The EarthChem library has a whole bunch of templates for geochemical data up. They can be used.
Yep, that's right. So there are possibilities here that you guys can use. The CZChemDB you can also continue to use. You know, we said, and I think it was misinterpreted more than a year ago, probably a year and a half ago, to continue using the CZChemDB Excel spreadsheets. Just don't use the database. So there was a confusion, like the Microsoft Access database that Sue Brantley's group was managing was pretty broken and really hard to deal with for Kirsten's group. Not really any fault of their own. They just, you know, it's the wrong piece of software, and also, you know, it was being run by a bunch of geochemists, not a bunch of database managers. And so, unfortunately, there were some things that weren't holding up, referential integrity, and some other pretty big issues. But the Excel templates are okay. They're totally fine. You could fill out a CZChemDB Excel template, put it on your website, and we told Sue that we would support the translation of CZChemDB templates into YODA files sometime in the future. Probably, my guess is that if you fill out a CZChemDB template, that's way better. Well, I know it is because I've spent a lot of time with those. It's way better than this type of metadata, right? That's really minimal. The CZChemDB, it's a different kind of data, I understand. But the CZChemDB template has a lot of extra information. All of that could be easily cut and pasted into a YODA template when those YODA templates are ready, and a little bit of extra information would be.
Hey, Anthony?
Yeah?
Okay, sorry, we lost you there. I don't know why. We lost the audio. So now we called in on phone.
All right.
So I don't know how long you were talking there, but we probably the last 5 minutes we haven't heard anything. 3 minutes.
Oh, I'm really sorry about that.
Oh, no
All right.
3 minutes, maybe 2 minutes.
Okay. Here's the answer to your question. I'll do this quickly. Kirsten mentioned that there are templates at earthchem.org that can be used. All of these are better than starting from scratch with Excel. The CZChemDB template that's been around forever, we gave the message quite a while ago that we will support the CZChemDB Excel template. The message was a little confused because we said we would no longer support any translation from the Microsoft Access database that the folks at Shale Hills were managing. But if you give us stuff in the CZChemDB Excel template, that's a much better place to start than starting from just creating a CSV file from scratch for soil geochemistry. It's a great place to start. We will either develop an automated way for that to be harvested. We've talked about that, although that hasn't happened yet. Or quite honestly, it may be really quite simple to do a bunch of cutting and pasting into the new YODA template. That may be a much easier thing to do all the way around. And by cutting and pasting into the new YODA template, there will be some missing metadata fields that you'll fill out, and then everything will work with ODM2 really quite seamlessly. So yeah, use the existing templates right now.
Okay.
There's no reason to wait.
Okay, that's an important question that we wanted to have answered, and that's pretty clear now, so thank you.
Okay, my little run through is going longer than I wanted it to. I want to point out vocabularies. Controlled vocabularies are incredibly important. They get spellings for terms like nitrate or calcium to always be identical, right? So here's some benefits and outcomes of using controlled vocabularies. Here's some instructions and a list at the bottom of the recommended controlled vocabulary systems. We are now fully recommending the ODM2 controlled vocabulary system. This list, you can notice I changed website, is a fully functioning list of vocabularies that basically can be downloaded as CSV files so that you can, have the whole vocabulary right there if you want to use it locally. But the better use is that it's actually available as an RDF form. So machines can understand this all beautifully. to date, neither CWASI or AIDA has had anything like this. What we did was that we took the best of the best terms from both CWASI and AIDA and merged them. And just last week, the International Geosample governing body approved of the ODM2 vocabularies for medium and specimen type to be their official vocabularies, because we had done a lot of work to pick the best of the best. So starting now, use ODM2 vocabularies where possible, and we give guidelines on how to do it. There are some cases where you still want to stick with the CWASI vocabularies, and some cases where you want to stick with some of the EarthChem vocabularies. So this explains those.
Very quickly, I would just add on that note that for the display files, that while you're still using the CZO display files, I would suggest that we stick with the CWASI vocabularies until we transition to YODA. Or
yeah.
Anything involving YODA, it should use the ODM2 vocabularies rather.
Yeah, everything using YODA should use ODM2. The current CZO display file, if you're going to continue to do that, which is fine, we should be explicit here, should use these set of vocabularies. So those vocabularies directly came out of the result of the ODM2 work. So, and it's one of the last things that we worked on because it depended on ODM2. It's incredibly important. It's hard to describe how important. The next thing that we really want CZOs to do is to obtain IGSNs for sites and specimens. I think this is one area where you all could do some work, and there are an enormous number of benefits for using international geosample numbers to track not just specimens or samples like, you know, bags of soils or plants like are shown here, but also actually use it to track the metadata of sampling sites. Hydrological gauging stations should have an IGSN associated with them, because the benefits are that anything related to that can be traced back to it, and it's a really great way to integrate data around a certain set of sites. And IGSNs are designed around that. There was a lot of work in developing a set of guidelines specifically for CZOs. So the instruction sheet is short here because it's been over a year now that we've had specific guidelines for CZOs how to do it. So the first thing you want to do is register your sampling sites, weather stations, stream gauges, soil pits, wells, etc. Start using that site IGSN as part of your workflow for managing all the data from both sensors and specimens that come from that site. And then if you're collecting specimens that will be analyzed more than once, you know, you don't have to do it for every little thing that's going to get destroyed in an instrument. But if it's going to be analyzed more than once or shared or subsampled or archived, give it an IGSN. And then you can use those IGSNs when you're publishing your data. And it makes your information more linkable and more accessible, because IGSNs are kind of like DOIs. They have this little article that was posted at geosamples.org, which is a system for a sample registration, describes how using IGSNs in publications enable these automated processes that are being adopted by the publishers to link information between publications. So it's beneficial for both your local data management, but also really when it comes to publishing. The next tabs are geospatial data. You guys are already doing this. Essentially, people forget that geospatial data can be listed as data sets on criticalzone.org. You're already doing it. Here's some instructions, but you guys have this figured out. Same goes for LiDAR. LiDAR data should be shared with Open Topography. You guys are already doing this. We will skip over that. The last of our expectations is that as data gets QA/QC'd, it really should be archived at a data center. So it shouldn't be, once you're really ready to release a version of a data set, it should go to some place like one of our recommended data centers. And I'll scroll down here. IETA right now issues DOIs for a whole variety of data sets, including aquatic, chemistry, and probably they would also accept time series data, although that's not where it's going to be leveraged the most. So the recommendation is that data repositories should be selected. Actually, if we go up to instructions, the first one is determine the appropriate data center or repository for your data set. And it's based on scientific discipline or data type. Different data centers give you enhanced services based on their knowledge of your type of data, the domain of your data, the format of your data, using their templates, et cetera. So these are the ones that we recommend right now. We've been partnering with IETA for geochemical type stuff, and then QASI. QASI does not have a history of archiving data with DOIs, but they're beginning to experiment with it. Both QASI HydroShare, which is a separate service from the QASI Water Data Center, are beginning to do that. So these are some guidelines about what is really just beginning to happen, like kind of right around the corner in the next month or two. Like there's already been some experimental implementations, for example, of issuing a DOI to a time series from the QASI Water Data Center.
So it seems like the IETA would be good, obviously, for geochemical data that's spatially distributed, so like the soil geochemical profile stuff. What about for hydrochemical time series? Do you have a recommendation, or whether between QASI HydroShare or the QASI Water Center for those, or should that also be IETA?
So let's see, there's the present and the future. Right at the very moment, HydroShare is not yet issuing DOIs. HydroShare is more focused on hydrological data and will be implementing YODA file ingestion services and can handle the wide variety of file formats that the IETA EarthChem library can handle. IETA EarthChem is also going to be developing services around YODA files. So geochemical data from specimens collected from a river is something that could probably go to either of these repositories. IETA right now can issue a DOI.
I mean, we can, if we should talk about it within the CZOData team, if HydroShare needs DOIs for data sets, we can issue them. We have, done DOI registration of models from systems, this community system for, Earth surface modeling, something like that. They hold the models, and we just issue the DOIs for them and manage the metadata. So that is something, if there is a need for HydroShare to get DOIs, if that's a demand from the individual sites, then we should implement that. That's not difficult to do.
There's, of course, a general problem of how you assign DOIs to data that are changing.
Oh, that change. Okay.
Yeah, well, that's a very separate issue, and it's worth clarifying. So go ahead, Ilya.
Time series is like the prime example of this type of data, and in fact, that there's been some interesting work within Research Data Alliance on
I was just going to say
recommendations, right? Recommendations on how you assign DOIs and how you cite data for evolving data sets. So the gist of it is essentially that you need to have infrastructure that allows versioning and timestamping, and also the queries that define subsets of the data that are referred to in publications or elsewhere should be also timestamped. And with query management and query timestamping and versions and timestamps, that will be a system that can be used to reproduce queries and get the same results as referenced in the publication. So these recommendations are very new. I believe they came out like last week. And there are some ongoing experimental implementations that are happening. So this is an experience that we need to tap into for assigning DOIs for time series.
Yeah. So let me clarify what our recommendations are for CZO data. For raw data that is being streamed out and hasn't been QA/QC'd and is constantly changing, what Ilya just described is what the current state of the art is. Is that they're the beginnings of conversations of how you can issue a DOI to a streaming data stream of raw data. And this is an example right here. Shale Hills Service has a DOI associated with it from the Quasi-Water Data Center. The Quasi-Water Data Center primarily deals with that type of data. But really the primary use of DOI that's very well established by IETA and other repositories, including the biological networks that are part of Data One, are basically accept files like this one right here, all right? So this is from your CZO. It's stream water chemistry and rainfall chemistry, and you've done a certain amount of quality control and quality assurance and issued a file. And if that file is not going to change, then it should be loaded as a file, preferably. It can go as a CSV, what would be even better would be a CZO display file version 1, and what would be even better than that would be a YODA file once that is fully specified and easy for you to do. But any of those files can be loaded up to EarthChem Library or HydroShare. And in the case of water geochemistry, I would say that probably HydroShare is eventually the place to go, but it's not quite ready yet for DOI. So what that means is that, let's say you update this file, every time you update it, you actually have to go out and get a new DOI. So you don't, that's in theory how it works, right? And then you can link them and say that, you know, this was a previous version of that, and the whole system can work that way. But it's really, the DOI is designed for data that you're kind of done playing with, and it allows for reproducible science. So if someone runs a model using your data sets, they use the DOI, and anybody who wants to rerun a different version of a model on the exact same data sets can do so, even if they're old versions and things have been updated, because those old versions are always out there in the archives. So that's the point of a DOI. The last point I'll say is that right now, you can see at the bottom of my web browser, this file is pointing to the CSV that exists on the Jemez, the CZO Arizona EDU web server. Once you get a DOI, you should always point it to the data center, the repository. You should actually use the DOI, because if IETA goes away, that DOI will if IETA changes its website, for example, the DOI will get redirected.
No, the URLs for DOIs, for the DOI metadata landing page are persistent.
Oh, okay. So
just for clarity, I'm sorry. So, I mean, once we get a DOI for a data set, let's say the 2012 stream water chemistry data from the Jemez, when one clicks on that, the URL should actually be the repository itself, not our data stored on our server, but it should be the repository, either HydroShare or IETA, wherever it is or that granted us the DOI. Is that what you said?
Exactly. Yep.
So that's something that we can.
Yep. So this is instruction number 3 for this DOI web page. So you can see here, DOI. So once you know the DOI, which is listed out here, and if you type it in at dxdoi.org, this is the resolver. That actually points to this DOI landing page that IETA hosts. You can see that the URL automatically changed. The resolver sent it to here. What Kirsten said is that they're not changing. They have no plans on changing the way this works at IETA. So you could also use that link right there. Either one is totally acceptable because it's using the DOI to point to things. Now, to actually get more information, you can click on this download data thing, and now you're in this world of a more interactive system that gives the information where you can download the data files, etc. This might change, I suppose, but the DOI will always point to this. Okay. And then this is actually then downloading directly from the source, right? This is the official record that's been archived and is citable in the scientific literature, right? This is a DOI. This is completely citable.
Right. And AIDA will take any kind of soil-related data source, things like particle size distribution, chemical data, not just the geochemistry, but also mineralogy and those kinds of components. We can link all those. Physical properties.
Yeah, we have quite a number of data sets on grain size distributions and things like that are more sort of mineralogy and physical properties.
Okay, great.
Okay, well, we realize that this is definitely something that we are not, we're not leading the pack on. We realize that, obviously, looking at this. So this is going to be a priority for us going forward.
Yeah, well, super. You guys are leading the pack in other ways, and this is, you've just been continuing to post data sets up even as CSV files instead of waiting around. So that's been awesome, and this is an area that you can work on. I think this integration with AIDA, both the IGSNs and EarthChem library, and potentially HydroShare. Jeff, do you want to add anything about HydroShare and where it's headed?
I think that you've kind of covered it. HydroShare is a little bit different focus than the Quasi Water Data Center, and the distinction that I would make is the infrastructure of the Quasi Water Data Center is actually fairly well suited for running an operational data system. So I have an active relational database that's using ODM, and I'm constantly streaming data into there, and I've got web services that offer the data on the internet. That's all good, and we talked about some of the limitations of assigning DOIs and all that kind of stuff. Quasi, the HydroShare project, is much more focused on resources that are created, shared, collaborated around that probably are not going to change or stream the way the Quasi Water Data Center infrastructure is set up. But the idea is that you as a CZO may be running your operational data system. Matei's streaming all of your data into these operational databases, and then at some point you decide, okay, this data set is at a state where I'm ready to push it into a repository like the data center, and into HydroShare. And it might be a chunk of your data, it might be the complete data set, it might be whatever you decide or how to sort of divide things up. But HydroShare would offer you something very similar to what Anthony just showed. Every resource has a landing page, it has a citation, it has a permanent URL, and once you've got something in HydroShare and decide you want to formally publish it, P with a capital P, then HydroShare would actually make that resource immutable and would issue a DOI for the data set, and it would become citable within HydroShare. So kind of a similar workflow.
It won't be easy. For example, that data which we have in CZO Central in ODM one database now, somehow link to this HydroShare. And I think it will be not only for us, but probably for other CZOs as well who have data there.
Yeah, so Matei, one thing that I would say is really cool about HydroShare is that we're right now testing the application programmer interface for HydroShare. So we've developed an API that would actually allow you to write code to create this data package, push it directly into HydroShare as a new resource. And you wouldn't actually have to even go there and, go to a website and fill out all the forms and all that kind of stuff. You could actually create the data package in code and directly push it into HydroShare as a resource through the API.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think when it's going to be ready?
The API is working to some extent now. We're having some issues with really large files. And I think for you, Matei, there would be a learning curve about how to actually use that API, but probably not as steep as some others who might actually be better off to just go to the web interface and create a new resource using the web forms that we've got there. But I would say there's capability there now. As Anthony mentioned, HydroShare is not currently issuing DOIs for published data sets only because we've not settled on who the partner is that we want to partner with to issue those DOIs. HydroShare doesn't want to recreate something that somebody's already created. So like as Kirsten said, it would be easy to partner with IETA or someone else to just get DOIs through another service.
I just updated the descriptions of what the specialties are of IETA and HydroShare. So we can try to do a better job of guiding through what we've written here. But the feedback that I just heard makes me realize that, yeah, we need to help you all out, make those decisions. And water geochemistry, especially pore water geochemistry, is kind of right in between the two. I think both can handle it.
And I just want to make sure I'm on board. This is Craig. That with something like the soil data, we can load up CSV files with columns of all the, the depth samples and with tags to locations. We can do that now on the CZO website. I understand if it's not a YODA file, it won't be linked or taken up, but eventually if we just simply can convert that CSV to a YODA file, that'll be okay. There isn't like a set format or template that we need to enter all of this soil data into, like that CZChemDB, which was unwieldy, and one reason we dragged our feet on loading the data up. Because we have all this data that can go now, but we've been holding off and seeing if there's some kind of template or database format that needs to be loaded up in.
Yeah. So the short story is that, yes, the CZChemDB template is unwieldy, and it's, definitely could be improved. Some of the conceptual logic behind it isn't ideal. All of that's going to be improved with the YODA file template. But the honest truth is that the YODA file template is not going to be easier for you to fill out. Hopefully it's going to be about the same. That level of extra information is actually incredibly important, and we need that to be able to integrate information. So I don't know if there's good news and bad news there or not. Does anyone want to add anything to that?
Eric said a few minutes ago was that you recommended that we use CZChemDB and that, that we input our data into CZChemDB now, and that there is a very high likelihood that there will be an automated capacity for transferring into a YODA format from CZChemDB, but not necessarily from like an Excel spreadsheet or CSV file. Is that correct?
Yeah, if you have a random CSV file, you're on your own to cut and paste that into the YODA file template if you want those enhanced capabilities. If you use CZChemDB, we'll help you out. The information that's in CZChemDB, 90% of it will also need in a YODA file. Some of it we don't really need. There's some fields that don't really make sense, but we'll replace that 10% with other things that we do need that don't exist in the YODA file, in the CZChemDB file.
Okay.
So the YODA file template's not going to be easier. The first one we created was actually harder. We're trying to improve it.
Okay.
The power of the YODA file, though, is full-blown integration of data values. Like, if you want to search calcium in stream water, in soils, in bedrock, ODM2 will have that capability to query all of those calcium information from all of those different types of sampling medium and methods for a geographic area, for example. Like, that's the concept behind ODM2, so that kind of massive integration is possible. So you can't do that with CZChem. Yeah. So anyways, that's why we're putting in that extra work. But
How about microbial data? Of a DOI.
Yep.
Any recommendations, or is that kind of outside the scope? Oh, I didn't see that at the bottom of the page.
Yeah. So if you go to the so there are instructions say pick the right repository, and there are many. And we have not directly partnered with any. Our primary partners are AIDA and HydroShare, or AIDA and Quasi, and now Quasi has 2 different systems depending on whether it's for archiving or whether it's a continuous time series. But we have conversed with folks at the KNB repository, and also most recently the LTER. Well, not just most recently, but we've recently had another conversation with the LTER people. These are designed for biology. They use a really different system, but they do issue DOIs. And frankly, just like the EarthChem library, they can accept anything. Just like HydroShare, you can put a shape file in their system. You can put a CSV file with, it doesn't really matter. I mean, I haven't actually done it myself, but they can accept everything. But if you describe it using their ecological metadata language, you get enhanced services. And it's kind of the same thing with the LTERs.
Can CZOs co-located with LTER still submit or still obtain DOI from LTER?
If you're co-located, it's never been a question. I'm not sure that LTERs issued DOIs. They just recently they're in the process of completing this really big building of their new network information system. It's now complete. So they now have DOI issuing capabilities and everything else. And in fact, our recent conversation was that they would really like to accept data sets from all the CZOs. They just submitted a proposal to basically be a biological repository for all field stations and observatories, including CZOs. So there's actually a pretty big link there. They want to be a direct partner with us up here on the short list. So that has to get funded. Right now we don't have funding to do that, but there's a lot of interest there. But regardless, you work with them, and we could probably, right now we don't have enough information here, but we could probably add contact information for assistance. They would bend over backwards to help you guys put data into their system, get a DOI, and once you've done that, you cut and paste the information that into this CZO template here, and have the link point toward the LTER data system, and it will all work seamlessly. It will be tracked by both the CZO central system and the LTER network. And we kind of see the CZO central catalog as being a bridge, actually, between all these different data repositories. That's kind of the early point. We're getting pretty much at the end of our allotted time. I'm not sure that we've covered all your questions. There are 2 optional things, options for using ODM2 databases for local data management, totally optional. It sounds like you're interested. You guys can read this and contact Jeff and myself about how to do that. For streaming data, if you want live data to show up, for example, at the CZO visualization system, let's see, if you want live data to show up here, we could help you with that. It's not totally part of our scope, but so this is one of your time series that is visualized within the CZO visualization system, but it ends in 2011 because that's the last CZO display file that you loaded up. You can load up CZO display files, and we can visualize up to the most recent one. But if you want like live data to show up here, we could help you with that. There are ways to do that. And so there's a page on how to do that. I'm wondering how we want to spend the last bit of time here.
I already added some question about this visualization, but when you go to that page, there are only visualized some sites for the Catalinas, which is only half of our CZO, and Jemez data are not there yet.
Yeah. Oh, did I just hide that?
And one thing.
That page.
I can address that.
Yeah, go ahead, Emilio.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, and one thing, what I have a question about this visualization. How often are you updating the data or service? Because
so that's two independent questions, but let me get to them. First, Jemez. When we first set this up several months ago and made the first data load, the service seemed to be broken for Jemez. So that's why it didn't load it. The water won't flow. I was looking into it right now after seeing your comment, and it looks like it's online. So I'll try to get to it. The second question is how often does it get updated? After the first, right now it's not being updated regularly. That's definitely on the to-do list for the near future. And once it is, we haven't decided what a reasonable period would be. I don't have a good feel. I'm sure Ilya and his team would have a better idea of what, how often the different CZOs update display files. I suspect that daily or less frequently would be appropriate.
So let's say in my case, I'm updating data quarterly, some data yearly. So
did you say daily? Sorry.
Quarterly. Quarterly. So maybe. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That quarterly.
Yeah. So that definitely needs to be developed, or we'll be developing that automation so that the data gets updated. Mm-hmm. And I'll be looking into the Jemez now that I see that it is online, and maybe I'll try to load it by next week.
Yep. Thank you.
We have the initial idea of the visualization system was, frankly, it was kind of tacked on at the very last minute with a relatively small amount of funding. It was to demonstrate what's possible once water gets once data gets loaded up using these more integrative capabilities like the CZO display file or now the YODA file. If it's not in a format like that can be machine readable, then visualization is not possible the way that Emilio is doing it. But so we just wanted to show that capability as being possible. It was never designed to do it all. It was kind of designed to kind of show NSF and CZO investigators this is what's possible. So we don't actually have money. We'll do our best with kind of volunteer time or whatever to get these things to happen, but we don't have money to automate that data ingest. But the infrastructure is there, so it'd be easy for us to do that in the next round of funding. If you have immediate needs because you want to show things off to NSF or look good or use this yourself, contact Emilio.
And I actually
he'll see what he can do.
I have to go to another phone call, unfortunately. So I just wanted to say, to follow up on what Anthony's saying, that automating, there are two components of automation for regular updates. One would be getting the latest data for a site that already is there, and you define the sensors, so just getting the latest batch of data. That part will not be a problem, and it's something we can take care of. The other kind of automation is, or the other component of the automation is updating the list of sites and what variables they have. That will need more work, and I don't have a good feel yet for how much work that will be. In other words, if in a new quarterly update you actually add new sites or you add new sensors to an existing site, automating that presentation is something that needs more work. And I apologize, but I had this pre-scheduled conference call right about 3 minutes ago.
That's okay. I mean, some of us actually have to leave as well, so we're at the end of our time. Yeah. This has been very helpful to us, and it seems like, I was just looking over our questions again. I think that you guys addressed most of the questions that we had, which has been helpful, and I think we have a pretty good idea of what we need to do in our going forward now. It sounds like it's going to be essential that NSF funds you guys on another cycle or something, because otherwise we're going to be in kind of this place where some of this is not completely done yet. So hopefully that'll be the case. Do you have any sense of what's going to happen post-March?
NSF has been avoiding that question for about 2 years now.
Yeah.
Enriqueta kept on punting, and then with the change of leadership in EAR surface processes, you know, it's all up in the air. Enriqueta is no longer the program officer for CZOData either. She's completely gone from CZOData. So this new guy, Paul Filmer, is our program officer. I don't know if you interacted with him, John, at the meeting at IML.
Yeah.
But I did quite extensively. I like him a lot. He's not overly. He was very understanding. He actually has experience running a NASA data center in his past. He's a remote sensing guy.
Right.
So he gets it on both ends, and but he's not very responsive to emails. I've tried to like invite him to cyber seminars and phone conversations, and haven't really got anywhere. So I kind of think that they want to hear from you guys, and this whole reverse site visit thing. They wanted to talk to the whole review of the national office had to happen first, and I think we're going to be next.
Okay.
They told me back in February that they would want to have a reverse site visit with our team, and they keep on putting it off. At first it was April, then it was going to be in the summer, and then it was going to be in the fall. And
I see. Okay. All right. Well, we have our reverse site visit coming up, so I'm sure that this will be part of the conversation.
Yeah, and we want to support you all in that. I mean, we realize that our focus has been on developing this stuff and not as much on communication, and that we need to help you all get going. But we really believe that the tools are in place. These are tools that we really developed with you all in mind, with your input, and the tools are in place for you guys to look really good.
Well, I think that this was really a good, helpful discussion, and it would be great if you end up going forward, even from between now and March, of course, you know, with another 6 months or whatever, 5 months, but going forward beyond March, it would be nice to do something like this sort of on an annual basis or something. I know it requires time from you guys, but it's very helpful for us to address specifics for each of the CZOs, because I'm sure that each of the CZOs deal with data management in different ways, and for us now we know things that we need to focus on going forward. So it was real helpful.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much. If I know a lot of you have to go, if Matei or anyone else wants to hang on, I can stay on the phone for another 15 or 20 minutes to just kind of receive and other questions or get more input if anyone else wants to stay on. But I guess we can consider the main meeting adjourned, and I appreciate everyone's attention, and I think that this is really useful on both sides, and certainly long overdue. The meetings with data managers have been good to get initial input, but really I think these one-on-ones are required moving forward. So I like that idea, John, to kind of consider this as an important annual thing. Also, there's a question in here about future cyber seminars. We always intended that we would, after getting input from all the CZOs, that we would have a series of more specific cyber seminars, and you've all requested one for ODM2. We will definitely have ODM2 for data managers who want to implement ODM2. We'll have a cyber seminar of that type late in the fall or probably early in the winter.
Anthony?
Yes.
Besides this kind of, like, let's say, yearly meeting like we have today and cyber seminar, are you planning some, let's say, if you have finished all the tools for the display file version 2 or YODA files, some training about the tools for the data managers and maybe some administrators who want to participate in that. I think that will be sort of helpful, some overview, more technical, and using how to use that tools and this kind of thing.
All right. So what I hear is that you're definitely interested in having a cyber seminar on ODM2 implementation.
Something more technical which will be useful for the managers.
Yep. For data managers, and then also YODA file generation or something like that. Yep.
So I think like one of the version can be as we had in the past, that let's say we met like twice a week and discuss certain things, so we can do it that way. So that will be sort of like what I see. And go more deeply to that technical.
Exactly. I think we've had plenty of the overviews, and we definitely need to have some assistance here. We realize that both for ODM2 and YODA file, well, YODA file is not quite complete. ODM2, from a conceptual point of view, is really ODM 2.0 is complete. We're already thinking about an ODM 2.1, but ODM 2.0 is really ready to go from a data storage implementation, like a MySQL database. You could do that tomorrow. Software around it is still being developed. Some of it is rather mature. Some of it is still under construction. So we can help you with that. And we realize that we need also documentation. Our ODM2 documentation could be better, but
actually I have already installed one ODM2, but it's version from like 7-8 months ago. So I think that it, and I saw that some newer version of ODM2, so I will have to reinstall it.
Yep, that's probably true. What you'll notice is that we don't actually have an official release yet. We want to do that really quite soon, so then it's clear that we're ready to support it. So that will happen soon, and once we do, you'll want to have that official release.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, so folks are getting off the call. Like I said, I'll stay on with whoever wants to stay on until about 1:30 at the latest. So thank you all. Really appreciate it, and we will definitely have follow-ups for training, the technical training for data managers.
Great, and thank you all for participating with this.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.